everyone. In this video, I'm going to be talking about dropped stitches and how to fix them in a knitting project. So here's a swatch I've been working on in stockinette, and I'm on a purl row, but this can happen on a knit row as well. And what a dropped stitch is when you fail to knit or purl one of the stitches in your row as you're going along. So this can happen if your yarn is all really crowded at the top of your needle and you pull off the stitch that you just knit and the next one comes too. And maybe you don't notice, and so you just carry on. So maybe it's been a couple of rows since you dropped a stitch, and then you notice you have this hole in your fabric and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what happened here? How do I fix this? So you don't have to tear out all your stitches, you don't have to start over. What you want to do as soon as you notice you have this dropped stitch is grab the first loop you can find and pull it through to give yourself a little bit of yarn to work with. If you don't do this, the stitch will continue to drop through previous rows. I can pull this one out, and now it's got one more row with the dropped stitch to contend with. So remain calm. What we'll do is knit until we get to that row or that column of stitches. Alright, here I am. I'm at the column where the stitch was dropped several rows ago, and you can tell how many rows by counting these sort of ladder-like rungs between the needles and the stitch. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows and then our dropped stitch. Now there's a couple ways you can carry this stitch back up through those 4 rows, and one is to knit it just like you would any other stitch. So for that method, you would put this stitch on your left-hand knitting needle and knit 4 times, one using each of these ladder-like steps. This might be a little bit difficult to show, but I'll do my best. So you have to start with the ladder that's at the lowest, all the way down here, and knit the stitch using that gap. Keep your working yarn, your free yarn, out of your way because you're using yarn that's already part of your fabric. So now I've picked it up for one row. I need to pick it up for the other 3. So I put the stitch back on my left needle, knit it using the lowest free ladder rung, and I can carry the stitch up as many rows as I need to, picking up those free ladders. You can also do this using a crochet hook. So I can take my crochet hook through the dropped stitch and just grab the lowest ladder, pull it through, and then grab the next lowest ladder and pull it through. And when I get back up to my top row, I'll need to replace the stitch on my left-hand needle. These stitches are likely to be rather tight because you didn't really know the whole time you were knitting those subsequent rows that you had dropped a stitch, so you didn't leave extra room to pick it up. But if you can manage to pick it up using one of these 2 methods and just keep knitting, your tension will even out. It'll borrow from the stitches around it, and in a few more rows you won't be able to tell that that dropped stitch was ever there.